You're going to see a great deal of competition coming.
Governor, on that point, Governor Rendell this weekend said that if he were confronted with roughly the situation you are, that Ohio and West Virginia are competing, and that Shell needed these kinds of incentives to come here, he didn't know exactly what he would pull out of the toolbox, but he thought that what you were doing was something he might well do. But he said the key, as a number of legislators are saying, is you have to sort of be able to quantify the jobs. How comfortable are you that if you build Shell, that you'll get that manufacturing industry, and how quickly do you get those satellite companies that aren't owned by Shell?
Okay, let's talk about the satellite company first. That tax credit, until they start using that fuel in those companies, there's no tax credit. They don't get to use it. So it's more of a performance-based tax credit, Pete.
For them, but not for Shell.
But Shell has to use it in something. Okay, for instance, if Shell were to take their ethane and send it to the Gulf Coast, to where the petrochemical industry is, there's no tax credit. They'd have to build a plant, a petrochemical plant, a plastics plant in Pennsylvania to use it. What that does is helps build the downstream market for this ethane. And it makes the market in Pennsylvania, not in the Gulf Coast. That's why I said it had to be used in Pennsylvania.
No, but when someone buys this, when Shell buys the ethylene from a driller,
When they buy the gas.
when they buy the
No,
gas.
first
from the
off, they
driller-
have their own gas.
Right, but they're also going to buy some.
They're going to buy some.
And they get a tax credit on the gas they buy.
They can, I don't have, they can to a certain extent. But this is really aimed more at the downstream end. Okay, for instance, let's say, since Amy's here, and I think in Philadelphia when I see Amy, if the ethane would go over in a pipe to a petrochemical plant in the Sunoco, in that group of refineries, if that's how we do that, that company over there will be able to get the credits. The ethane is the one that carries the credits with it. So we'd be rebuilding over there. Yes, we're giving tax credits, but we'd be rebuilding over there. And those tax credits equal jobs in that industry, and then where it's being sold everywhere around it. So what you were doing, and I think what we're doing, is creating the potential for the reindustrialization of a good portion of Pennsylvania. You know, what we've heard for years is that manufacturing is leaving Pennsylvania, is leaving the United States, going to other countries. This is an attempt to bring manufacturing back to Pennsylvania. Okay, next question.
Governor, can you talk about the budget? Can you put a figure on how far apart you are with the Senate leaders and what areas of disagreement?
Well, I think that you know where, you know, what my budget says right now with their proposed budget. That's where we are apart at the moment. We're still defining terms. We talked about some legislation. We're still defining terms, and I suspect we'll get into a little harder numbers here in the pretty near future.
But you can't give a figure as to how far apart you are.
Well, yeah, I just gave you the figure. I mean, I forget exactly what. Take my number, take their number. That's what we are apart at the moment.
What is your number?
What is it, 27, I don't have the budget number here. It's 27 something. It's actually $20 million less than it was last year. I think last year was 27.145, so it's 20 million less. But here's what I believe. My budget number was based on February 8th, I think it was. Obviously, we've seen some improvement in the economy. We see some additional revenues. I am hopeful that we'll be able to increase some spending. I'm not going to tell you where at the moment, but we can increase some spending. I don't believe we can go as high as the Senate went. Remember, I've said repeatedly that's a ceiling. Okay, when you're talking negotiations, there should be movement in two directions.
The legislative leaders have been describing the difference as what we want to have left over at the end of end of next year, saying that their budget would leave about $267 million left over, saying that you were looking to have about $500,000 left over at the end of next year.
$500 million. I understood what you meant. And that's a philosophical issue. There's room for movement.
That's where you believe things are at.
Well, that's part of the equation.
Sir, can you comment, today is the first day of the trial, the Sandusky trial, just that it's come to fruition?
I have to be careful what I say, because between being an attorney general and the gag order and everything else, I think everybody's looking forward to the trial, getting a decision and moving forward. This is the beginning of the courtroom process, of making a determination as to exactly what happened. I think it's important for all Pennsylvania to get this behind us. And hopefully the trial will move along at its pace, but that we will soon, I would hope by the end of the month, know the outcome.
One more.
Governor, the House today is going to try to take a whack at liquor privatization. You said earlier that you've been focused on efforts there. The Senate's been kind of ambivalent. Have you reached out to, say, Senator Rafferty down that side to start moving that process, or are you focused exclusively on what's going on in the House today?
Well, I've had conversations with Representative Turzak, Leader Turzak. I've not had conversations with the Senate at this point. The bill's going to start in the House, so they have to get that done there. I mean, I've indicated that I support privatization. I support selling the entire system. I do not support splitting in half and keeping liquor in the state store system and selling wine. So I've made that clear. And I've had discussions. At the very end of the campaign in 2010, I came out and supported a privatization. I still think that's important. Go back to what I was saying inside there. It's competition. I don't believe that we should be in the business of selling. I believe we should be in the business of regulating, but not selling.
Do you believe that the vote's there today, too?
You'd have to ask the leader on that.
Can I ask one more on the tax credit? Do you believe the ethane tax credit needs to get done with this budget cycle in order for us to
It's not part of the budget cycle. I will say that.
Is it in the tax
No,
code?
no. Well, it will be in tax code, but Pete, when I say it's not part of it, it's not. And I've seen the headlines of that story. People are comparing this year's budget problems and saying, how could you do that when the budget is so difficult this year? This has nothing to do with the funding to the budget this year, one way or the other. Okay, this is completely separate, and that's confusing. This starts in 2017. If these plants are built that will use it, they're not. And the other thing is, if you annualize it, Pete, you know the numbers probably as well as anybody, it's about the same as the film tax credit,
A little less, yeah.
a little less. Yet, I believe it will have a lot more jobs than the film tax credit. And it goes back to the whole idea, do we want to reindustrialize? Do we want to bring manufacturing back to Pennsylvania? So you might have heard me say in there, I think long-term, this is a long-term issue. It is important to have it right now because obviously, as I said in there, this is not a done deal. I keep trying to tamp everybody's expectations. And obviously you can help with the Post-Gazette. It is where, they planted the flag. Now, are they going to develop it? What could cause it not to develop? Well, let's say the economy really goes south and they go, oh, we don't have the money to do it. Whatever, okay? But this is one of the things, the KOZ, the Marcellus legislation, that had a great deal to do with them picking where they did. So I want to ensure, I do not want to lose this, I want to keep it. I think the people of southwestern Pennsylvania, western Pennsylvania, business people across the state understand that this is, it really is a game changer. Okay,
And
last question.
On education reform, are you confident you're going to get some of your big three, and where are you on teacher evaluation? How important is that?
Pete, I will tell you, I never count chickens before I see them hatch.
Well, can you talk about how important teacher
I
evaluation is?
believe all education reform is important. Some is going to happen, some isn't going to happen. We're working at it, okay? Thank you all.
Take that very